Be honest. When are you going to start to hold the person most responsible for your situation to higher standards of accountability? The ones who lie, deceive, procrastinate, make excuses, and ultimately keep you from the greatness that you know is within you. How that person who is oh so responsible for your life, your future, your destiny chooses to embrace accountability. It's all up to you. What about the way they choose to respond to the purpose they were called for? And if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about the person in the mirror. I'm talking about the one who has all the power right in the palm of their hands, but simply needs to wake up and realize it. This is the infinite evolution. You get to decide how loyal you are to yourself and your purpose. Only you. Chances are, if you're watching this video, the person who I'm talking about is ready to commit, because the one who I'm referring to is the person in the mirror. You are ready. It is the time, and now more than ever is the perfect moment to embrace accountability. This is the infinite evolution. And so today we want to talk about the idea of taking agency, of respecting the immense power you have in order to make an impact, and not just your life, but the world. Being responsible, accountable, and honest with yourself about the immense role you play in whatever your future becomes, good or bad. You more than anyone else is in control of your own destiny. Yes, there are exceptions. Yes, there are times where you don't have much of a say. But if there's anything you do in order to start building momentum and making some progress, why not lock in? Why not start showing yourself that love? And why not live up to the billing that you know you were built for? This is the infinite evolution. Accountability often feels like kryptonite when you're unwilling to simply look in the mirror and sit. Sit with yourself. Be honest with who you are, what you've done, and what you're willing to do. And it sounds really simple, but simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. However, looking in the mirror, facing those fears, standing up to the doubts, this is when you become your best self and not a moment sooner. Allow yourself to fail so that you can learn the lesson that you were supposed to get from it. But also, give yourself some grace. Recognize that you aren't a machine, you aren't perfect, you will make flaws, and those flaws are part of the story. They're part of what makes you unique, because there's something so powerful and so beautiful about dancing even through the storms. In fact, dancing especially through them. When you can be honest with yourself about the small ways in which you can become better, you tend to actually do something about it. Which strategy sounds more productive? Being honest with yourself about the small changes and adjustments that you could be making in order to get better, or to continue to do the same thing expecting a different result with no adjustments whatsoever. In one of my very first videos, I spoke about how the definition of insanity cannot be doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. That would actually be pretty normal and even healthy on some level. When you go to the gym consistently, working hard, eating the right things, you won't see results the first day. But eventually, over time, you will start to build momentum and you'll be able to see some results. But it doesn't happen overnight. That alone should let you know that doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results cannot be insanity. But you know what is? How about doing the exact same thing over and over, even once you've been given new information? No, the true definition of insanity is once you're impervious to outside information, that's when you know you truly lost it. Because if you have been working out and training for days and weeks and months on end, and you see no results, something about the process isn't working. Maybe you're working really hard, but you're eating away all your results. I've done it before, but are you willing to be honest with yourself about that? Can you look in the mirror and acknowledge that I'm being consistent with showing up, but maybe there are some adjustments that I could make in order to be better? This is the infinite evolution. These are the small incremental building blocks that you'll use to build your infinity. However, if you're unwilling to look at yourself and be honest, when you lay the very first brick, how could you ever build the entire empire? It won't happen. And all of this starts in the mind. The shortcuts you decide to take, the procrastination, the excuses, all of it had to begin with a single solitary thought. And who is most responsible for protecting and maintaining your mind? Nobody but you. Nobody can be as thorough, diligent, and protective of your own mental as you are. And if you're not going to be honest about that, you will miss out on massive opportunities to strengthen and protect your mental. Not everything that's coming in is good for you. Many things that we see, hear, feel, and experience are bad for us. They don't do us any good. But when you allow yourself to absorb them like everybody else, you're going to get the same results as everybody else. And once again, everything starts in the mind. You didn't come up with the shortcut. You didn't make the excuse to procrastinate without first going through some mental gymnastics. You used your mind and your logic to rationalize why you didn't need to put that work in, why it was a good idea to go back to sleep, why discipline in this moment wasn't the best option for you. And even though it was illogical, this is often the curse of a genius, because geniuses, or even people who are a little bit intelligent, can often think of ways to outsmart themselves. You know for a fact that what you should be doing is the the right way, but your logic and your mental tells you something else. And only you get to determine who's right or wrong. If you know that you're going down a wrong path, but you refuse to stop it, whose fault is that really? If you know that your mind is consistently making up excuses and that you keep ending up where you don't want to be, whose fault is it if you never make an adjustment? You could blame the world and you might be right. You could blame your environment and there's a really good chance that it's playing a role. But nobody is playing more of a role in your success or failure than you. So look in the mirror and be honest with yourself so that you can elevate. Every thought begins in your mind. That means you have to choose not to live in the past or to overly focus on the future. Because although we want to build, although we want to see results, if you can't be where your feet are, how are you ever going to achieve that greatness? You'll never attain the levels of which you're really capable of. So often we lose sight of what's really important. The present is the gift that you've been given right now. The past is already gone. The future isn't promised. But with the opportunity in your hand right now, you can do something special. You can be amazing, but only if you choose it, only if you take control of your own mind, and only if you take accountability for just how powerful you truly are. It's one thing to give somebody access to a powerful weapon that they don't know how to use, but it's another thing entirely for that person to be given the weapon, know its immense power, and never do the due diligence in order to become a master of it. You know that what's going on inside of your head is capable of changing the world for good or bad, changing your life for better or worse, but you never take the time to learn it. You never take the opportunity to simply look in the mirror and evaluate what you've been doing, the choices you've been making, and be honest about where you could be better. How can you ever hope to improve if you're living that way? However, when you flip the dynamic and you look at the lives of the people who do embrace that accountability, who will look in the mirror, who will be honest with themselves, who will take the reins of everything that goes in and out of their mind, those are the ones who win. Those are the ones who take advantage. Those are the ones who don't embrace victimhood and instead realize just how capable and how much agency you truly have. Of course, there are situations where you have very little control, but even in those situations, being able to control your mind and focus in such a way that you don't lose perspective is going to be everything. When you're driving in traffic and everybody is bumper to bumper, you could choose to freak out. You could choose to be impatient and try to make that quick swerve, but that tiny fender bender that's going to leave your car in shambles or maybe have you making repairs for years and years and years down the line simply is not worth it. Instead, what you needed was discipline. What you needed was perspective. And what you needed was patience. And that's the other thing we got to make sure that we're doing for ourselves. We must be patient when we look in that mirror. Without showing ourselves grace, being a little patient with our own selves, how can we ever hope to extend it to others? Patience and grace are not things that simply come upon you. You have to practice them. You have to have time and repetition in order to build up that muscle memory. What better place to start than with yourself, than being patient with you, than showing yourself grace for all of the hard work you've done, for all of the trials and tribulations that you've made it through. Because somehow or another, even at a time where everybody is folding, people are crumbling and breaking under the pressure, somehow, some way, you're still here. You're still absorbing these words. You're still willing to build and work and grind and do whatever it takes to reach your goal. That is special. That is powerful. It is a will and it is a mindset that you simply cannot pay for. And this is the infinite evolution. The ability to balance and have the perspective of just how important the past, present, and future are is priceless. And so few people have it. But if you can embrace it, the sky won't simply be your limit. It'll be your floor. You'll be capable of things that you never thought were even possible. All because you chose discipline. All because you chose to look in the mirror, be honest with yourself, and be accountable. By the way, that honesty is what leads to you being able to embrace the process. Whatever situation you're in, chances are it took time. Well, if you understand the past and everything it took to get here, and you also understand the present and how the process of what you do today will lead to the better future, who can stop you? When you add it all up, can any of us ever really afford to be that careless with our mind, the most precious gift any of us have? The thing that literally determines every single thing we do? Doesn't even sound right. It's the idea of accepting your flaws in history, but not allowing them to constrain you. And if anything, using it as fuel to light your path. Being honest about the day-to-day choices that you've been making that led to whatever situation you in. The tiny moments, the little things that build up that seem insignificant at the time in which it's happening, but actually lead to ripple effects on what your life is becoming. Those small choices have not only determined the present that you live in right now, but are continuing to shape and write your future. But what type of author will you choose to become? Because however you choose to look at those past moments, the present and what it's doing for your future, however you choose to look at the moments in the present, the tiny building blocks, those are the reasons that led you to being here today. And they're also the reason why when you reach that future, you'll be exactly where you want to be or not. Those are the reasons why you'll achieve everything you set out to. or not. Either way, you get to decide. But just like always, what are you choosing? By the way, that type of honesty and transparency only comes with love. Oftentimes when you hear people describe love, it sounds like rainbows and butterflies, like happiness, like never being challenged and only doing what feels good in the moment. True love isn't about being a yes man. It's about saying and doing the things that are necessary even when it isn't easy, because you understand that despite the short-term comfort that you may get by avoiding the situation, it'll lead to long-term problems. On the other hand, real love is speaking up even when it's not comfortable, even when it's not easy, because you know that the person who you're doing it for is also worth it, and it will be far worse to trade a tiny moment of discomfort for a lifetime of pain and misery. It simply isn't necessary. And so this is why when you have a loved one, you simply cannot be a yes man. You simply cannot tell them what they want to hear or what's going to be comfortable. You have to give them the truth. And before we can get to anybody else, it has to start with yourself. What happens when you look in that mirror and you can't even be honest with yourself? Honesty for other people is going to be real hard to come by. If you can't even come to grips with your current reality, how can you ever embrace the future one that looks entirely different? If you cannot embrace the fact that you've done things that have led you to this moment, how are you ever going to change it? You won't even accept reality. It is that kind of love that won't allow you to self-sabotage, procrastinate, make excuses, and keep yourself from where you ultimately belong. It's that sort of love and dedication that will allow you to create and embrace the master plan and then execute it in a way that is masterful. This is the infinite evolution. So until you can master yourself, you'll never create the masterpiece that you know you were capable of. It's that type of love that allows you to execute with the faith that simply will not be moved. And it all starts with the choice to simply look in the mirror and be honest with you. How can you ever hope to be patient and kind with others if you won't even do it for yourself? When two people get into a shouting match, nobody is really listening. Both sides are chirping, saying words at each other, but no real communication is happening. But what happens when that shouting match that takes place is going on between you and your spirit, between your character and your reality, between your actions and your choices? But what happens when that conflict is no longer external and instead is you versus you? When your discipline is clashing with your goals, the common denominator in all of these is you. You are there and must pick a side. You must decide what will you stand up for and what will you allow to take place. But even beyond the shouting and screaming and going back and forth with each other without listening, one of the worst effects of a shouting match is you often say and do things that hurt each other. When your actions are in conflict with your spirit, you're going to do some damage to yourself. When your discipline is in conflict with your choices, you're going to do some harm to yourself. This is why looking at yourself and being honest and objective is oh so important. Not taking sides between which one is right and wrong, but the choices you make in that situation are what determines the beautiful colors or the nasty picture you choose to paint the canvas of your life. By the way, in those internal conflicts where you're going back and forth, the chances to hurt each other go up exponentially. But so do opportunities to learn and build and listen and communicate should you choose to embrace it. What about pattern recognition and being able to recognize and contend with the choices and action you're consistently taking with no fluffing it and no downplaying it aloud? Be honest with you so that you can get the truth about what you need to do. Could you imagine if you went to the doctor for a checkup and you knew there was something wrong, but instead of giving you the solution, they simply made excuses. They told you it wasn't what you thought it was. They gaslighted you. They tried to convince you that something other than the truth is reality. How does it make you feel? Well, nobody's going to come in your life and be the fixer better than you can. Nobody else is going to be that doctor or that healer that comes into your life and makes the changes you need to, because all of the best advice in the world means nothing if you don't take it. You have to start with you. This is the infinite evolution. We are creatures of pattern and habit, and once you can get yours on track, there's really no limit to what you can create. Nobody is stopping you but you. So wake up, lock in, and be accountable to yourself so that you can start your infinity today. And with all of that being said, everything can't be doom and gloom. What about appropriate praise and celebration? Every single day can't be a grind. Every single moment can't be you locked in. There have to be moments where you simply release. There has to be moments where you relax, where you let up, where you kick back, and where you enjoy the show. If all life was hustle and work, it wouldn't even be worth it. You must embrace rest. Your life cannot be one big grind that never ends. There must come a time where you get to relax, rest, and celebrate. You've done great things, now you get to bask in it. You've put in the work, now we get to reap the benefits. If everything you do leads to nothing enjoyable, life will be miserable, and I don't want that for you. So take a moment to stop and smell the roses. Go outside, touch some grass, breathe in some fresh air, and allow yourself to live. Take the vacation, do the road trip, play the game if you've done the work, go to the restaurant and reward yourself for the hard work and discipline, but just make sure you do it in its proper context. Do it with balance, do it with fidelity, and do it once the work has been done. Vacation hits differently when you know you've earned it. Sleep itself hits differently when you know you've earned it. Eating out hits differently when you know you've earned it. Allow yourself to earn it and watch how far you can go. How can you ever give others their flowers if you won't stop for a moment to enjoy them yourself? Which leads to my final point, which is simply rest. You are human, you're not a machine, you cannot go forever, and by trying to do so, you actually give yourself diminishing returns. This is one thing that I really struggle with myself, because mentally I'm so ready and I'm so focused to achieve my goals, but my body has limits. My body needs rest. I need to recover and recharge. And if I don't embrace the rest as much as I do my purpose, everything will get done at a far lower level. The quality of my execution will suffer. The quality of my life will suffer. My ability to be present and enjoy the moment will suffer. And so it isn't optional. You cannot simply choose to bypass the resting which we all need. If the creator of the entire universe had to rest on the seventh day, why do you think you would be any different? So embrace that rest and allow yourself to perform at your best when the time comes. This is the infinite evolution. The other thing about rest is when you're tired, when you're fatigued, when you've been through it for a really long time with no recharge, that's when you're most vulnerable, most easy to fool, most easy to trick and deceive. And that's when you have to be most intentional about the decisions you make. It's one thing to resist temptation when you're fully prepared for it, when you know it's coming, and when you're strong. But when you're tired, you're weak, you're frustrated, when things haven't been going your way, those are the moments, those are the tests that determine the content of your character. But what are you going to do? How are you preparing your mind so that in those moments you make the right decision? You may not have to hold on forever. It may only take an extra minute or two. But if you haven't been training and preparing, why would you be ready to make such a difficult decision? One of the hardest but most liberating things we can ever do is look in the mirror and simply be honest. To love the person who we see staring back at us, not just through words or thoughts or feelings, but through actions, through dedication and consistency, through discipline, by giving ourselves the rest that we need, by not being so hard on ourselves, and by understanding the limited roles that the past and present are going to play in your life. Yes, the past got you here, and yes, the future is where you want to be, but the present is the beautiful gift that you want to embrace if you ever hope to achieve greatness. This is the infinite evolution. When you can look in that mirror and simply tell yourself the truth about who you are, what you're capable of, everything you've been through, everything you're going through, who can stop you? Chances are the only person who can stop you is the only person who has been stopping you. And they're all the same person. That would be you. Who you see when you look in the mirror and ultimately into your soul is entirely up to you. So appreciate the journey you took to get here. All of the battles, all of the scars, all of the wounds, the trials, the tribulations, the tests, all of it led to this moment, and only you truly understand just everything you've been through. All of us are going through something. All of us have a past, but nobody understands us like ourselves. But we have to choose to embrace the mentality of simply getting to know ourselves and being honest with what we see. Don't ever forget about how resilient you are, how brilliant you can be, how much you've gone through, and how capable you are of continuing this marathon. You were built for it. You were tapped on the shoulder by greatness, and now it's time for you to wake up and embrace the blessings, gifts, and opportunities that you've been given. This is the infinite evolution. Allow yourself the freedom to fail. Throughout our lives, all of us will go through trials and tribulations, but how we choose to handle them is completely up to us. They say when it rains, it pours, but if you know that the storm is coming, you get to decide. Will I shell up, cover up, and stop taking risks? You get to decide. Will I put on the raincoat and bring my umbrella and make sure that I'm prepared for whatever comes my way? Or will I even go further? Will I embrace whatever the struggle is and dance through those storms like only I can? Only you get to decide just how loyal you are to your purpose, to your calling, and to the very dreams that you've been blessed with. Not everybody has them, and you weren't given them by accident, but how you choose to embrace and honor those dreams is entirely up to you. The chips will fall wherever they may. All you need to do is focus on playing the hand you were dealt, and everything else will work itself out. You can't control everything, and you don't even need to. But if you can keep the game in perspective, if you can keep your life within the proper context, you can win at a level that you may not have even thought was possible. Oftentimes, our dreams and aspirations are really small, but what if God himself has so much bigger plan for you? Are you really gonna choose to ignore it simply because you wouldn't look in the mirror? So don't wait another second to start with your purpose, your faith, your discipline, your integrity, your honor, yourself. This is the Infinite Evolution.